All right, guys, what's going on? Goofy Rexy here. Hope everybody is doing well. And wanted to so we got the blog post yesterday for the preview of what's coming for the rest of 2022 and into 2023 as well. So I actually wanted to do kind of a quick review on this. Not going to go through the whole entire blog here, but wanted to kind of do a little bit of a breakdown. Let's talk about the pros and cons from this blog and also talk about some omissions, right? Some things that I thought would have been nice for them to have added in here, some things that players have been asking for a while that they also did not include in this blog. So we're going to be talking about that in this video here as well. So let's actually start off at the top here and kind of go from there. So first and foremost, I do like the fact that they've actually confirmed, right? We know now that the final horseman for Apocalypse is, or the fourth horseman for the Apocalypse is going to be Archangel. Very excited that they actually did this. Confirmation of also as well the Death Scourge team. So a lot of us have been speculating is who's going to be that next team that's going to be needed for nodes 5 and then also node 10. So they reiterated again that Bionic Avengers are going to be the team, but then they also introduced to us that we're going to be getting that the Wakandans can also be used in those nodes as well. So I think from a planning perspective, it is good that we now know, okay, well, yes, let's continue to build up our Bionic Avengers. We already knew that already. And of course, now we're going to look at some of the Wakandan characters and probably decide whether or not we want to build them out. I will say this though, usually there's only sort of one main team that you need for nodes 5 and for node 10. I think Bionic Avengers are probably going to be the top team because usually what we're seeing here as a trend is that the first team that's announced is usually kind of like your main needed team. We've seen that with Young Avengers. We've seen that with Hero as Guardians. We've seen this with some couple other teams here, Web Warriors. So probably going to be Bionic Avengers here again. And of course, they also confirmed what we already saw from data mine leaks that we're going to be getting 2 new Wakandan characters, Nakia and then Black Panther 1mm as well. One of the things though I will say as a con to this is that we did not get confirmation on the rest of the Death Scourge team. Now I know the data mines are out there that Death Seed is going to be the team, but it would have been nice for them to have done that, especially if you're going to announce that Archangel is going to be the Death Horseman, which I know a lot of us are excited about, but also sad about because that's more mutant gear at the same time. But I mean, fan favorite character, right? In the comics. So we're excited about it. It's a little sad that we didn't get to see them actually announce that in the blog. Now there's going to be another blog that's going to be coming out tomorrow. So we may get it then, or maybe we'll get it in the blog next week, right? I think we're going to get a patch probably next week. So maybe we'll find out some more information then, but I do think that it was a missed opportunity for them to actually mention it here. Now, Death Scourge is going to be going live in version 6.6, so you do have some time to start kind of building out that team for Archangel, but of course, start building out your Bionic Avengers now to get yourself ready for whenever that Death Scourge event does come into place, especially if you're doing your raids. The next thing I wanted to talk about was some Cosmic Crucible stuff here, which I thought was another really good positive thing, was that they're going to be adding this practice mode now to Cosmic Crucible. For me, this is a big one, right? Because there are a lot of matchups that I go into where I'm like, this is a different kind of comp. I would like to be able to practice that comp. So I'm very excited that they're actually going to be adding this practice mode to Marvel Strike Force for Cosmic Crucible. I think it's definitely going to help with a lot of players being able, because you kind of got to figure things out on the fly, right? Which adds a little bit to the excitement of it, but then also can add to a lot of the frustration, especially when you have events that are tied to Cosmic Crucible, which we know that they're probably going to be doing in the future. I actually think it's a good thing that they're going to be adding this practice mode here to Cosmic Crucible. Also, I will say stage rules in combat. So I'm assuming now that what they mean is that I don't know if they're going to be adding them into like while you're in combat, you're going to be able to see it, or if this means that you're going to be that this is also going to apply to offensive teams. I don't know yet. This is very kind of confusing, so we'll have to see what that is. That's one of my cons here, is that like I don't know what this means. Like stage rules in combat would just like this to be a little bit more pronounced, because as I just said, there's 2 different ways that I could go with this. This will like some little clarification where that is concerned, but practice mode is good. Now there's some new content. This costume is nice, but we're not going to talk about costumes here in this video. This Namor one looks pretty dope. But wanted to talk about some of the game improvements that they discussed here. And one of the things that they're going to be doing is they're going to be adding this hard campaign. So when you get ready to take on this new hard difficulty for campaign missions, for a new challenge and new opportunities for rewards. In the next release, 6.5, hard difficulty will be introduced for the first 2 chapters of the Heroes and then also the Villains campaign. Hard difficulty will grant different rewards than normal difficulty, offering great opportunity to stock up on Teal origin gear amongst other resources. They talked about characters that are going to be added to those specific nodes there. So they mentioned Phi Lavelle, who of course is already farmable in the arena orb, so I'm not in the arena store. Not quite sure why she needs a node, but I'm not quite sure why she needs a node. But they talked about 2 other characters here like Wong and Cersei that are going to be added to these hard difficulty nodes for the heroes and for the villains campaign. Also note too that you will need to be at level 75 minimum required in order to be able to get to access to this hard difficulty node. This is a good and bad thing, right? I think it's good for the sake of new content there that we're going to be able to do as end game players, and even for mid game players too. You kind of get through a lot of the campaign stuff at a decent time, and then you don't really have anything else to do except for maybe like the Doom campaigns are kind of hard for you to do for like chapters 3 and 4. But really heroes and villains, there's really nothing else there. Now the reason why they're adding this is obviously to make it so that they can provide more farmability available options for characters, right? That because we've been stressing like, dude, like we need more characters to be farmable, and partially I don't think that they have a lot of places to put these characters, so having this campaign was definitely going to help. But I do think that it's kind of bad because it does stretch out some of these characters that players really need in order for them to be able to do content, right? So if you're looking at the Scourge events, Pestilence Scourge event, the Famine Scourge event, right? Cersei and Icarus are super important to those nodes, to some of those later nodes that are in those Scourge events. It's kind of hard to then have to wait for Cersei and try to get lucky with premium orbs. It's kind of tough for some mid-game players because it says player level 75 can enter it, but then at the same time, it's also, you know that there are going to be some nodes where you're going to need to be probably level 80 or higher, or maybe they'll scale it to where it's at least doable for some mid-game players. I just think it's going to be, it's a little bad. I think this could be bad, right? I don't know if it's going to be bad. I think that it potentially could be bad, that if it's too challenging of content and players cannot get to it. Also, Wong is really important to the Darkhold team, so you also have that issue as well. Players may not be able to get to those nodes, so that's one of the bad things that I would say about it. They talked about some other things here, economy updates. Some of these I'm going to skip over. They talked about adding to the raid store here. I think this is one way that they're trying to address bottlenecks, right? So raid store updated with 12 slots for orange unique gear pieces, and then 12 slots for purple unique gear pieces. My only thing with this is this is very vague. I don't know what uniques. Is it hero uniques? Is it mini uniques? We don't know exactly what uniques they're talking about. This could be one way to be able to do it. But I do think that this is going to help out more end game players, and it is going to help out mid game, or early, or maybe early end game, just simply because maybe you're not getting enough raid credits. But for me, like I have a crap ton of raid credits right now that I'm just like, if I jump into the game right now, how many raid credits do I have? 382,000. And as you can see, I use them, right? I use them a lot. As a matter of fact, I'm going to grab these SBCs right here. I use my raid credits. There's just not enough things for me to use raid credits on. So I'm going to benefit from this. I don't know if everyone's going to be able to benefit from it. And that's always my concern, right? So if some players benefit and then others don't, maybe there's some tweaks that you need to make there. So hopefully we can share that feedback and then make some tweaks if we need to, or suggest some tweaks that they need to make here for things to be fair across the board for most players. I understand that there's always going to be some players that are probably not going to benefit just simply because maybe you just started the game, etc. Like things like that will come into place there. They did also mention this, which is kind of interesting, opening Teal gear orbs in the war store for elite war credits. So save your elite war credits, guys, because you're going to have some Teal gear orbs that are going to be there. Don't know if it's going to be origin gear or if it's going to be uniques again. We don't know a combination of all of them. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but looks like your war credits, elite war credits, are going to be important again. So start saving those to make sure that you're going to be able to open up those orbs once the time does roll around. I know that I usually only keep like 25k. Once it gets to like 30k for fragments, I usually kind of just pop open some orbs here. So start saving those so that you can open up their teal gear. Maybe they'll add some G17s. We don't know. We'll have to see exactly which direction they decide to go in. My guess is probably going to be G16 gear. They did talk as well about this retreat button, which I think is really good. So for raids, this new retreat option in raids, retreat ends a raid match without battle progress, no energy loss. This is huge. How many times do you go into a skill node and you just get depleted, right? Or you go into a bio node and RNG gets really bad on the Doom 3 raids. And then of course, there's things that happen in Doom 2, Ultimates, all those things. I think that it's good to be able to have this retreat button where you can get out of it, no energy's lost, and you can kind of save that attack there. I think it's going to be really helpful and probably going to help players to be able to complete raids a lot faster at 100% rate. I'm looking forward to this feature being added. Hopefully this one is added sooner than later, and that we're not going to be getting this like stretched out as far as I'm concerned. But those are some of the positive things. I think some other things to talk about here that may be negative. It's a late blog, right? Like you said, 2022 second half preview. It's October, dude. it's October. So it's not necessarily it's not a second half. This is basically a year preview of 2023. Sure, you can say it's the rest of 2022, but this is really a late blog, in my opinion. And then also some things that, in my opinion, were omitted. So let's talk about omissions, right? So they talked about a little bit of the bottlenecks that are here, which I mentioned, right? The orange uniques, orange unique gear pieces. We don't know. It's a lot. It leaves a lot to be desired, right? We don't know if that's going to be G14s. A lot of us are struggling with G14s right now, doing endgame content where we actually need G16 gear to up, where G16 and G17 are actually the new gear, but we're still struggling to get G14s. G15s seem to be fine. Like, it makes no sense, right? So then there wasn't really anything mentioned there that talks about, okay, we're going to be alleviating the G14 bottleneck. You're going to get a lot more G14 pieces from your raids. You're going to be able to get them here, right? They didn't really talk about that, which is something that I would have liked for them to mention. There's a lot of bottlenecks too, I think people are facing with training mats and also with gold. I think we're getting a decent amount of gold if we want to kind of space out your upgrades, but I still don't think it's enough gold to be able to upgrade these new teams that they keep building out, because it's not just these new characters, it's also reworking these old characters and then bringing a lot of them up. Like, listen, we're going to be getting this Dead Sea team, right? Which we know from the data mines that Magneto and Psylocke and that they're said to be getting a rework, but I'm gonna have to spend how much gold am I gonna have to spend just to be able to get Psylocke to level 90? That's 8.6 million gold per those two characters, right? And it's what, 13 million gold in total from level 1 all the way up to level 90 for me to be able to use these characters and Doom 3 raids, and then of course eventually Saga, right? So things like that I look at where I'm like, man, still the gold economy needs to be changed up a little bit, and I would have liked for them to say, okay, well, we're gonna infuse more gold into your roster. So I think some omissions there in training match too, I still think a lot of players are getting into, and even some ones that need to be addressed for earlier players, really not crazy stuff mentioned here. Maybe this takes care of it in the raid store, but I feel like there's other ways that they need to also infuse some of these resource bottlenecks as well. Character farmability improvements is something that a lot of players have been asking for as well, right? Like, character cadence needs to be mentioned. You talked about how you're going to be adding these characters now to XYZ nodes, to the hard difficulty nodes. That doesn't necessarily help out everybody. So character cadence needs to be implemented to say a character gets released X 2 to 3 months after, or 1-2 months after that character gets added to some place to be farmable, not fountainable, farmable. They need to make sure that they do that, and that's something that I think was missing from this block here. That's something that needs to be addressed. Bugs, oh my goodness, game crashes, character kits not working correctly, events, the web store taking forever to load, right? Things like that were not addressed in this blog. And when we're looking at things that players care about, these are the things that players care about, guys. They care about things not working correctly when they're supposed to be working correctly, especially if they spend money on it, right? So for me, an omission, in my opinion, that they did not address this. Elite store issues, the Red Star Elite Store, something that I brought up to them again this week. And I'm getting close. I'm wrapping up here, guys. But Red Stars, right? Like, what about the Red Star store? We need to be able to have the agency to log into our rosters and actually use our Red Star promotions on our characters. That's something that has been brought up to them multiple times now, especially over the past couple weeks. It's a couple months now, I think it's been brought up. Something that they need to address, in my personal opinion. I still haven't seen Braun in my store. It's been almost 3 weeks now, right? Or 2 weeks. approaching 3 weeks now. Braun, I've not seen Braun in my elite store as of yet, and I'm just trying to get him to 4 reds. Orb sliders, that's another thing I always talk about. I like the ×10 thing, but it needs to be like a slider button that just allows me to open up a bulk at a time. I would love to be able to get rid of a lot of orbs, but I'm just not going to sit there and open them up 10 at a time. I'm not going to do it, right? So that's it for me, guys. What are your thoughts? Like, what are pros and cons for you in the blog? I didn't go through everything, of course. I just highlighted some things that I wanted to talk about here that I thought were worth discussing. What do you think are some omissions, some things that you would have liked to have seen added in this blog? Would love to hear from you guys. But thank you so much for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Hit the notification bell so that you know when the videos do go live. And until next time, guys, y'all be blessed. Y'all be safe.